Good evening and welcome back to the Not Bad News Network. My name is Erin, and tonight we've got 3 stories for you. The first 2 are about sustainable energy, and the last one is about sea lions. So our first story tonight comes out of the UK. Government sets record budget for green energy auction. The government is set to significantly raise the budget for this year's renewable energy auction following calls from industry for more support. Energy Secretary Ed Miliband announced on Wednesday that the budget would be increased to £1.5 billion, up by £500 million from last year. The majority of the funding will be available to develop offshore wind power, which the Labour government says it wants to quadruple by 2030. The extra money has been broadly welcomed by renewables industry, but there are warnings that without other changes, any new projects may not be delivered in time. The government holds an auction each year to encourage companies to bid to develop renewable energy projects to supply the UK grid with electricity. The scheme is designed to ensure projects get a guaranteed price, known as the strike price, from the government for the electricity they will generate, which it is hoped will enable companies to have the confidence to invest. Last year, developers did not bid for any offshore wind contracts. They argued that the price being offered was too low to make the projects viable. In November, the former Conservative government significantly increased the strike price for offshore wind projects in response. Mr. Miliband has said Labour's commitment to maintain this higher price and increase the budget available to projects would restore the UK as a global leader for green technologies. But Claire Coutinho, Shadow Energy Secretary, said the government's plans were untested and uncosted. Labour are ramping up renewables at the same time as decimating investment in gas, which is our only existing backup for when the sun doesn't shine and the wind doesn't blow. What will be put in its place? Ed Miliband can't tell you, she said. Ezrin Sarin, policy fellow at LSE's Grantham Research Institute on Climate Change and the Environment, said the budget increase was welcome and a necessary step. But she added that this year's auction would likely only deliver 10 gigawatts of the 40 gigawatts needed for Labour to meet its 2030 target. It obviously leaves a significant amount of work to future rounds, she said. This announcement is one of a number of measures the Labour government has rolled out since the election to boost renewable energy, including removing planning restrictions on onshore wind and teaming up with the Crown Estate to develop new offshore wind projects. Dr. Ramat Pudina from Oxford Institute for Energy Studies agreed that the higher budget would bring in more bids, but warned that developers still face challenges, including unexpected cost increases and delays to connecting their projects to the grid. The government wants to see renewable energy projects grow quickly to reduce planet-warming greenhouse gas emissions from fossil fuel use, but it also says it wants to increase energy independence to protect bill payers from fluctuations in the international energy market. Gas prices hit record highs in 2022 as the Russian invasion of Ukraine caused disruptions to supply. If the price the government guarantees to renewable energy developers ends up being much higher than the eventual price on the market in 2030, then the taxpayer could lose money. But Jess Ralston, head of energy at the Energy and Climate Intelligence Unit, said it was more likely that scheme would break even. She added that if there was to be another gas crisis, then the wind energy secured at this auction could save £30 to £40 per year on every household's energy bill in the future. Alright, so see if any new developments are coming out of that. Meanwhile, the question of when the sun doesn't shine, we've got this interesting next article about how world-changing solar tech could mean the death of batteries. Every 6 seconds in a factory on the northern fringes of Stockholm, a top-secret printer is spewing out sheets worth of thousands of euros apiece. Each one contains 108 miniature solar cells that will soon find their way into everyday gadgets, from keyboards to headphones, that will fundamentally change how we interact with technology. According to their creator, they will even force us to rethink our relationship with light. Sweden may seem like an unlikely location for a solar revolution, but the lack of light during the winter months was one of the reasons for Exeger co-founder Giovanni Fili to look beyond the sun as the sole source of power for a photovoltaic cell. His company's breakthrough tech can harvest electricity from virtually any light source, from direct sunlight to candlelight. It can even generate a charge from moonlight. Like the algae on the bottom of the ocean, where it's almost pitch black, we can make efficient use of very few photons, Fili tells The Independent. The t-shirt he wears describes his company's technology as world-changing, capable of simultaneously addressing the global need for energy and some of our planet's greatest environmental challenges. Indoor solar panels have been around for decades. Solar-powered calculators were first introduced in the 1970s, but the limitations of amorphous silicon cells they rely upon mean they are too low power, too fragile, and too rigid to be integrated into other products. The latest innovation stems from a discovery made in 1988 relating to dye-sensitized solar cells, or DSSC. A pair of scientists from UC Berkeley in California invented a low-cost, high-efficiency cell that was both semi-flexible and semi-transparent, which offered a pathway for commercial development of the technology. Just over 20 years later, Fili and fellow Exeger co-founder Henrik Lindstrom came up with a new electrode material that offered 1,000 times better conductivity. The breakthrough formed the basis of their PowerFoil cells that are now being produced at a commercial scale. Exeger's PowerFoil solar cells offer a radical departure from the traditional glass-covered panels, eliminating the need for silver lines you see on them that serve as conductors. They are also not sensitive to partial shading, which drastically reduces the efficiency of photovoltaic panels. The patented skin-like material can even morph into almost any material to allow for seamless integration into a huge range of products while remaining waterproof, dustproof, and shockproof. It works in any light condition. It's more durable than any other solar cell in the world. It's easy to manufacture, and it can imitate any surface: leather, carbon fiber, wood, brushed steel. It's also beautiful, Fili says, so we can integrate into products that are already selling in billions of units per year. Exeger's Stockholm facility has the capacity to produce 2.5 million square meters of solar cells each year, making it the largest factory of its kind in Europe. Speaking at the factory's opening in 2021, Fili predicted that Exeger's technology will touch the lives of billions of people by 2030. The PowerFoil solar cells have already found their way into 7 on-the-shelf products, including headphones, wireless speakers, and a bike helmet, while a further 6 have been announced. Customers include Adidas, Philips, and 3M. Exeger is one of the several startups pioneering the commercialization of indoor solar panels, with the promise of clean, endless power attracting both researchers and entrepreneurs. US-based Ambient Photonics was drawn into the space by the magic potential of the smart home, as well as the hope that it would be possible to eliminate the need for disposable batteries. The scale at which smart electronics are able to be deployed has been limited by battery life and the use of traditional batteries, which require continuous charging, stagnate product design, and have negative environmental consequences, Bates Marshall, co-founder and CEO of Ambient Photonics, told The Independent. TV remotes alone are responsible for 3.1 billion disposable batteries being thrown away each year, according to estimates from Samsung. The Korean electronics giant has made switching from alkaline batteries to photovoltaic energy a priority in order to reach sustainability targets, claiming it could reduce its greenhouse gas emissions by around 6,000 tons per year. Every advancement in the power density of our product brings us closer to a future where the need for disposable batteries is significantly reduced, if not entirely overcome, Marshall says. Ambient photonics DSSCs have so far been integrated into remote controls through limitations with the amount of heat and light they can be exposed to, mean the technology is currently limited to indoor applications. The versatility and durability of Exeter's Powerfoil means only limitations are energy-intensive devices like laptops and smartphones, although they could provide a significant boost to their battery life of 50 to 100%. Exeter is also exploring a solar-powered tablet cover that could provide enough power for infrequent users to never need to charge. Our grandchildren will laugh that we had cables. Well, that's certainly interesting. I'd like to do some more research about that. But let's get into our last story of the day, which is scientists employ sea lion camera crews to map uncharted ocean ecosystems. Many of us have likely watched a nature documentary and wondered how cinematographers got the perfect shot of a cheetah hunting its prey or a school of fish navigating the deep blue. But in a recent study published by Australian researchers in Frontiers in Marine Science, there's no wondering who was behind the camera this time. In fact, the whole study focuses on one camera crew in particular: sea lions. These endangered mammals didn't have a goal of seamless filmmaking, but were employed by researchers to collect video data about habitats and ecosystems in the waters of southern Australia. Using animal-borne video and movement data from benthic predator is a really effective way of mapping diverse benthic habitats across large areas of the seabed, the study's first author, Nathan Angelicus, said in its statement. These data are useful both for mapping critical habitats and for critical habitats for endangered species such as the Australian sea lion, and more broadly for mapping unexplored areas of the seabed. With the help of the sea lions, researchers identified 6 benthic or underwater habitats covering 5,000 square kilometers. The idea to utilize the sea lions came from the fact that these seabeds are underexplored, and using remote underwater vehicles can get extremely costly. Plus, the sea lions seemed unfazed by the job of wearing cameras while roaming their natural habitats. For this study, the researchers, who hail from the University of Adelaide and the South Australian Research and Development Institute, attached tiny, lightweight cameras to 8 adult female sea lions. The equipment was attached to neoprene patches that were glued to the backs of the sea lions and included GPS trackers, cameras, and motion sensors. These pieces were designed to weigh less than 1% of the sea lion's body weight, so they weren't encumbered by their video equipment. They then went on to capture nearly 90 hours of footage, which, most excitingly, included areas of the water that had never been seen or mapped before. These are particularly deep and remote offshore habitats that you can't get to by the usual surveys that you would have to conduct from a boat, Angelicus told Nature. With the data we're collecting, we're essentially exploring new parts of the ocean that haven't been mapped. After completing the project, the equipment was removed from the sea lions' backs without damaging their fur, and the patches will easily fall off during the next molting season. Additionally, this process was approved by the university's Animal Ethics Committee, as well as the government bodies responsible for animal welfare and the environment, according to the study. Another interesting element of this work is that it puts the animals at the heart of the study in control of its findings, providing metrics that are clearly relevant to their survival rather than human subjective ideas. Traditionally, assessing the quality of different habitats and marine environments is done from an anthropocentric perspective, Angelicus told Science. Whereas here, we're using sea lions as the tools to assess the marine environment, and they provide us information on the areas that are important to them. I think that's an important shift and something that can be incorporated with more traditional data. This is especially important as the Australian sea lion population dwindles. Hunted in the 20th century and threatened by fishing nets, populations have declined by 60% in the last 50 years, with above 100,000 sea lions left across 80 breeding sites along Australian coastlines. But this new sight into their homes shows researchers what they encounter every day. Information has been so elusive because they are feeding at the bottom of the sea, Professor Simon Goldworthy of Swarty told The Guardian. Now we get this amazing, exquisite detail. They're giving us a window into their world that we haven't had before. The researchers used the footage to assess biodiversity in the area and to help training a machine learning model that aims to predict and map seafloor habitats using variables like sea surface temperature and distance from the coast. They also hope to use the data to better understand habitat distribution and biodiversity in these areas, which will illustrate the value of various factors in the habitat and could contribute to the conservation efforts protecting sea lions. While the future of these studies and the sea lions themselves remains uncertain, knowing even a little bit more about the ins and outs of the species is significant to their survival and to science at large. Just like humans know our streets, the sea lions know the seabed in intimate detail for hundreds of kilometers, and they built up this knowledge over time. I would love to see some of that footage. Maybe we can find it in the future. Anyway, that's all the not bad news I have for you tonight. Until next time, this is Erin, signing off and reminding you, no news is good news, but not all news is bad news. Bye.